Every sin carries its own consequence. Similarly, pornography has its own consequence. Now, I want to share from a research perspective as to what really happens in your body and in your mind when you watch pornography. What really happens to a person in their body and in their mind when they watch pornography. Now, based on a research that was done by a certain group of researchers, I can share the article with you, great article. They said pornography, watching pornography causes depression, erectile dysfunction, inability to achieve orgasm with a real life partner, and what happens is quality of marriage becomes very low. Quality of marriage life becomes very low. Because once a person experiences the pleasure out of pornography, what happens in the brain is that the brain registers the place the person enjoyed that pleasure. Okay, so when you experience a certain kind of pleasure and it's really good, the brain registers that place that you enjoyed that kind of pleasure. And so what will happen is whenever time comes for you to enjoy that pleasure again, it will take you back to that place. It'll take you back to that place. So if it was a time when you were watching a pornographic video that gave you that pleasure, no matter what you can do in marriage with your own wife or with your husband, your brain will never associate pleasure with that. It'll always take you back to the time when you watched a video. And this is also in matters of food. Sometimes, we can go to a restaurant, really good food, and we enjoyed that food. And no matter where we eat, we will kind of go back to that same place because we liked it. Because what happens is the brain registers that pleasure. And so we always kind of go back to it so that we can enjoy it more. So what pornography does is that it destroys sexual intimacy in marriage. So whenever it comes for sexual intimacy, you will never derive pleasure out of marriage, but out of pornography. That's what happens. Basically, here's the thing. Your brain gets rewired. Your brain gets rewired. When a person watches pornography, the brain is completely rewired. It turns into a very unnatural thing. And also what researchers say is that when a person watches pornography over time, they become less sensitive to conventional acts of sex. And what will happen is they'll end up desiring for more. And that is when they will desire for a violent form of sex that even involves blood. And sometimes that will also involve choking a person so that they can gain more pleasure, and also causes sexual violence. I hope you're following me. When a person watches pornography over time, they become less and less sensitive to just a man and a woman. They'll go into videos where there is violence that is involved along with the sexual acts. There is some form of choking that kind of causes more pleasure. And also there is some form of incest. All these things kind of becomes more pleasurable than conventional acts of sex. So it just changes the way you think about sex completely. The enemy will come with a deceptive thought saying you can improve your life, but it's actually going to cause a lot of destruction. And also, like I said, lower quality of life. And also a person who is into pornography will suffer with great depression. I look at my life years ago, I was very, very depressed. And as I was going through this, I realized I was depressed because I was addicted to pornography at that time. And the moment I came out of it, depression also was gone. And now I realized, depression and pornography has a link. And so pornography, a person who watches, will live a very low quality of life. So many issues will come up in their body, and it's just a real mess. It's just a real mess. Even ungodly people will tell you that this is really bad for you. All right. And also, pornography causes erosion of the prefrontal cortex. Prefrontal cortex is part of your brain where it houses executive functions like morality, willpower, and impulse control. Prefrontal cortex is the place in your brain that houses morality, willpower, and impulse control. If you look at a child that is growing, in a child, the prefrontal cortex is not very well developed, which is why you look at a child, they cannot really regulate their emotions. If they want to do something, they'll jump and do it. If they feel like jumping out of the bed, they will do it. If they feel like jumping anywhere, they will do it. They just don't have the regulation to control their emotion and their impulses. But as a person grows, their prefrontal cortex develops, and it kind of gives them morality, willpower, and impulse control. But when a person indulges in pornography, what happens is it causes a erosion of the prefrontal cortex, which in turn causes a condition called hypofrontality. Hypofrontality. And this is basically a condition where it causes the individual to behave compulsively, which means they have no control over their life, no control over their actions. They want to do something, they'll do it. That is what pornography causes. It causes them to lose control over their physical body, over their life. And also, pornography causes a person to make poor decisions. I don't know if you've ever heard this. This is the reality. It basically rewires your brain. When a person watches pornography, they lose control over themselves. They become very compulsive. They will do what they want, when they want, how they want, and nobody can stop them. And also, a person who is watching pornography will make poor decisions.